Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Friday, getting your weekend started, and lots of games coming up over the weekend. None bigger of note than Purdue and Indiana, as the Hoosiers will travel to West Lafayette to visit Mackey Arena. We're joined now by our friend Zach Osterman from the Indy Star. Zach, how are you, sir?
I'm good. How about you?
Cannot complain. Dustin Schutte with us as always as well. Big game this weekend, obviously, for a number of reasons. First and foremost, it's a Purdue-Indiana game, which that is back to having the meaning that it used to have for fans, which is good to see in and of itself. But these are not only two of the best teams in the conference. You've got two of the best players in the country, much less the conference. So we've got that showdown. Purdue coming off of a loss to Indiana before. They don't necessarily need this game, but they want it badly. Indiana could certainly use it. They're not – I don't think Indiana is guaranteed that second round bye yet, even though they have two home games, I think, that will help finish that out. But they're kind of – they put themselves in a little bit of peril of slipping off of that.
No, I mean, Indiana is in a tricky-ish spot at the moment. Honestly, results yesterday probably helped because Northwestern is just sort of out ahead of the field. You probably would have preferred Northwestern beat Illinois, but you do hold the tiebreaker over Illinois. So if you get into kind of a combined – it's a head-to-head, you got the tiebreaker. If you get into a combined record situation, that's a 2-0 that you can bring into the tiebreaker. But Rutgers losing helped. Getting to play Iowa again helps. This is one of those games. I mean, it's a rivalry game, so it's obviously going to matter for both of these teams. And you're right, Purdue will want to beat Indiana at home. This win would, if Indiana were to win this game, it would be basically as high quality of a win as any in the Big Ten all season. It would bump the Hoosiers up a seed line, all those kinds of things. Having said that, Purdue is going to win the league. I don't believe they can win it Saturday because, they cannot win it Saturday because Northwestern theoretically could still tie them. I guess Purdue could win a share of the league now that I'm doing the math.
Yeah.
But Purdue is going to win the league. Indiana is comfortably going to make the NCAA tournament, probably in the top 5 seed lines. We are kind of at a point where these are the sorts of teams that just need the postseason to start. Like that we have been waiting all year, and we've asked, well, does Indiana need another scorer? Is Trey Jackson playing too many minutes? I saw a tweet a couple weeks ago about how Purdue was only like the 5th team ranked number 1 overall to lose to multiple unranked teams in a season or something like that. And 3 of the previous 4 lost in the first round. And I remember reading that and just thinking, this isn't a statistic. This is just this is just jargon numbers. Like, we're just at that point where we need to see these teams play in postseason settings. We have been trying to analyze and predict for so long. We just need to see them in the postseason, the Big Ten tournament, and then obviously the NCAA tournament. So Saturday is a bit of it's a little bit of a, I don't know what the word would be, kind of a pressure's off game for both teams. Indiana can obviously afford to lose this game. Purdue wouldn't want to lose this game at home, but it wouldn't really affect them greatly either way. And
what about mentally? That's the only thing I could see is if having swept by Indiana.
And if Indiana goes up to Purdue and gets pounded, Purdue exacts its pound of flesh, and suddenly Indiana's lost 3 of 4, then that could factor into it as well. I don't know, but I just think, hopefully it just kind of leads to a good open game of basketball, because it doesn't feel like either team is in, grave peril if they lose this game, I guess is my point.
Right. And to me, that it's going to be interesting because over the last 10 to 12 games, we've talked about how much this Indiana team has improved, and I don't think the result at Mackey Arena is going to really change that unless they just get thumped. But at the same time, as you just mentioned, if you lose, 3 out of the last 4, the narrative starts – I feel like we've been on a roller coaster with this narrative with Indiana. Does it flip back the other direction? Because I think right now the way two teams are playing heading into the tournament, Purdue slipped up a little bit. I feel like just a week or two ago, you felt more confident in Indiana's ceiling in the postseason than you did Purdue's. But boy, how quickly those things can change. I mean, I think this is a fascinating game for a lot of reasons. I don't know. It's an interesting perspective that you put out about both teams not having pressure because they don't necessarily need to win this game. But at the same time, there's still a lot on the line there with it being a rivalry game. I don't know. I'm even more excited for this second round than I was the first one, just because I think Indiana's fighting for a top 4 seed. Purdue would love to win a share of the conference title against Indiana and maintain their spot as the number 1 seed in the NCAA tournament. It's an interesting perspective on heading into this one.
Yeah, I mean, to be clear, I don't think either team is just going to throw this game away.
Right.
There are a variety of reasons why, both of these teams, why each of these teams, is going to want very badly to win the game. And you're right in the sense that there's plenty still on the line for, if you're Indiana, for example, a 3 seed probably better than a 4 seed, because if you're a 4, you're basically playing a 5 in the second round that's probably more or less equal to you. That's how that tends to work out. Whereas if you're a 3, sometimes you get the 6. The 6 is more likely to be upset by the 11, at least in theory. So then sometimes you get the 11, etc. The other thing I will say too is, and you're right, that both of these teams have, faltered a little bit lately. Indiana's lost 2 of 3. Purdue hounded Ohio State last weekend, but before that had lost 3 of 4. Excuse me. We're also at the point in the calendar where it's hard to tell what is basically exposed weakness and what is just the fact that you're playing teams twice. They've got banks and banks of film on you. They've got film of you playing them. They've got film of you playing all the other people they've played.
Right.
Their scouting reports are more in-depth. The time on task has bred more familiarity within their roster. And again, it comes to a point where conferences just start beating up on each other in mid-late February because everybody knows everything about everybody else. A number of times you'll watch a Big Ten game this time of year and a team will call a play and the defense will just turn around and tell itself what's about to happen because everybody recognizes it. And the thing is, that's not, obviously you don't want that, but that's not as much of a concern in the NCAA tournament because teams aren't going to have that time on task against you. And particularly if you win your first game of the weekend on a short turnaround, they're certainly not going to be able to, do that sort of in-depth breakdown and prepare for you. Tuesday's a really good example for Indiana. And obviously there were horrible exigent circumstances around the game, but Tuesday's a great example for Indiana. Trace Jackson-Davis pounded Michigan State a month ago. That was one of his best games of the season by some distance. He had 31 points. He shot 13 free throws. He had 15 rebounds, 4 assists, and 5 blocks. That was as good of a performance as he's had all season outside maybe his 1 or 2 best games. So Tom Izzo, who's maybe the best coach in the Big Ten, probably is, had a month to study Trace Jackson-Davis and figure out what he was going to do at his place. And then Indiana got up there. And again, even if, and this is a difficult thing to do, but even if we remove everything else that was going on around that game, Michigan State had lost 4 of 7. They didn't want to make it 5 of 8. If they lost that game, they'd be 16-11. And 2 of their last 3 games are on the road against Iowa and frankly, a Nebraska team that I would have no interest in playing right now if I was anybody in the Big Ten. So there's more peril than opportunity for Michigan State. They needed that game. So you have Michigan State probably playing with more urgency, certainly more emotion for everything that was going on. And Michigan State was getting its second crack at Trace Jackson-Davis, Jalen Hood-Schifino, and on and on and on. And so it also becomes a little bit this time of year, things look uglier, teams struggle a little bit more because sometimes, especially in power conferences, you are just too familiar with each other. And that's again where I get back to the idea that you need to get into those more unusual settings like a Big Ten tournament where it's if you win, it's you're preparing for the opponent the next day. You don't have 2 weeks to build a game plan. And then obviously the NCAA tournament where you're playing opponents that have never seen you before.